All aboard! It is time to get on that Weather Geek train. It's Weather for Weather Geeks here on this Tuesday evening, the 3rd day of October 2017. We are in the middle of another ridiculously warm weather pattern, but we have some interesting things to talk about tonight, both here close to home and a little farther afield as well. We'll get to that in just a second. But in the meantime, 80 degrees today. That was our forecast today, so we nailed it. To both the high and the low temperatures today were zero errors, 47 on the low side, 80 on the high side. That was exactly what our forecast was, and those are my favorite kind of days when we can put up goose eggs. As far as the error goes on the temperatures, I track our forecasts every day, along with some of our competition and the Weather Channel and that sort of thing, to see how we're doing compared to others. We take accuracy really seriously, and when we see biases showing up where we might always be too cool on day 5 or too warm on day 7 or something like that, it's always nice to be able to look at that stuff and make some adjustments to our forecasts, so we're always, bringing you the most accurate forecast possible. All right, over the last 9+ months, there's been ups and downs. This is a trace of every day's temperatures so far this year compared to average. And what I want to draw your attention to is, of course, the big pattern change that occurred right in the middle of September, right around the 14th, 15th of the month. That's when we started getting kind of locked in to this warm weather pattern, and we've been there ever since. And generally speaking, the pattern's going to stay this way, it looks like, through the next week or so, with not much in the way of large-scale changes. Now, I'm going to talk about the longer range in a couple of minutes here, and we'll see how there can be some bouts of cooler weather, but generally speaking, this is a pretty warm pattern compared to the average as we transition into the second full week of October coming up. I'm vamping a little bit here because my computer my graphics system is trying to lock up on me, so bear with me for just a second. While that's kind of giving me the spinning circle of death, why don't I skip ahead? And since my browser's not locked up, oh, there we go. Now my graphics system is unlocked. This is a very complicated graphic, and it really slows my system down to have that much information in one graphic. It's pulling from a spreadsheet that has a lot of data in it, so it tends to make my computer choke sometimes. All right, when that pattern flipped in mid-September, ever since then we've been locked into not only the warm pattern but a dry pattern as well. Only 7% of our average rainfall since September 15th, and 8.4 degrees warmer than average during that roughly 2.5-3 week period. That's a pretty big number for that time span. All right, in case you missed this last night or this morning, good week to check out Venus in the early morning sky, especially tomorrow morning. I think we'll have some clouds to contend with Thursday morning and probably Friday morning as well. But low in the sky, 6:30 is a good time to check it out, just as the first light of day is approaching, but the sun is not up yet. Venus very nicely illuminated in the eastern sky with Mars just underneath it. Now, Mars is a little harder to spot. It's smaller in the sky. It's not as bright. It's got kind of that ruddy or rusty appearance that makes it just a little tougher to spot than Venus, which looks like a very bright star, but is indeed a planet. All right, when we look across the country this evening, the country's kind of divided in two this evening with a cold front right out in the middle. East of the front, summertime continues. West of the front, more typical kind of fall weather is unfolding, and we've had some snow in parts of Montana and up into the prairies of Canada as well. When we look at the temperatures this evening, you can see that kind of dividing line again between summer and fall. It's right in through here. It's in the 40s in Billings, Montana this evening, while here in the Mahoning and Shenango Valleys, we are still well up into the 70s. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that kind of far afield is where we're going to look this evening, and that's because a little tropical mischief maybe trying to get organized down here in parts of the southern Caribbean off the coast of Central America. This doesn't look like much right now, and it's not much. But this is forecast over time to become a little more interesting. Let me stop this animation so that bad frame stops coming up. That purple bad frame. Sorry about that. But this is what we call Invest 90L. It doesn't have a name or anything yet. It's not even a tropical depression. It's an area that's being investigated for organization and things like that by the National Hurricane Center. Doesn't look like much right now, but it is forecast to organize and probably become a depression and probably eventually a tropical storm, and then eventually down the line, maybe even a hurricane as it comes north. Conditions are very favorable as this moves northward and towards the Yucatan Peninsula or maybe the western tip of Cuba. Very warm water, not much wind shear, and this could be a problem in parts of the Gulf in a handful of days and maybe for the southern U.S. as we go towards the weekend and into the first part of next week as well. So that's something we'll be keeping an eye on, and there's actually a chance when we look at the longer range modeling, there's a chance that some of that moisture from that tropical system could bring us some rain. It might be a close call, but it's not outside the realm of possibility that we get some rain from that system at some point next week. All right, in the meantime, we do have some rain in the forecast. It's not going to be much, though. Tomorrow is even warmer than today. I've got 82 in the forecast tomorrow. Clouds will increase in the afternoon, and starting right around dinner time or maybe close to sunset, which, is around 7 o'clock or so these days, there can be a couple of showers, and that chance for showers will continue into tomorrow night, but I've actually improved our Thursday forecast because it looks like the front's going to sag far enough to the south that we get into the dry air and the sun will come out. And actually, Thursday, I think, turns out to be a pretty nice day. Then the front starts wobbling back north Thursday night into Friday, putting us in the zone where we can get wet again. And while I don't think Friday features any heavy rain and probably doesn't rain all day or anything, it can try to rain a little bit at any time on Friday. But then the model trends have definitely been significant over the last 24 hours, continuing to push this front north as we go into the weekend, putting us firmly back in the warm sector. So after spending Friday mostly in the upper 60s, we're going to shoot up to 80, it looks like, on Saturday. Backing up and taking a look at those hour-by-hour rain chances for your Wednesday afternoon and evening. Again, they really go up as we head past sunset into the overnight hours. Some showers, some much-needed rain will be around, but, again, it's not going to be much. When we look at the modeling here, our models are all under 1/4 of an inch through Thursday night. Now, there will be additional rain on Friday, but for Wednesday night, and then as the rain picks up again Thursday night, still, probably 1/4 of an inch or less. Hopefully we get a little more coming up on Friday. We could use a couple of rainy days. Just rains all day, nice, steady, gentle rain where we pick up an inch of rain over the course of a couple of days. That would really help out our soil moisture and overall dry conditions, but that doesn't seem likely anytime real soon. Let's switch sources here and start talking about the weekend and early next week. This is the GFS model. Let's fast forward to Saturday. I mentioned that front is retreating back north as a warm front. Whoops. Here's Saturday, right here. Let's see if I can avoid the graphic switching on me here. The front is lifting back north as a warm front. It's up here Saturday, so we're well into the warm sector. It'll be a breezy day. I've got 82 in the forecast for Saturday afternoon. So again, temperatures off to the races as we start the weekend. And Sunday also looks pretty good. Now the front may wiggle back south of us Sunday for a time, meaning Sunday's probably not quite as warm as Saturday, but still looks like a nice day, upper 70s. Now this is interesting what the GFS is showing Sunday afternoon. Here's that tropical system I was just showing you. It's right down here. Already perhaps making landfall in parts of the Gulf Coast region. Now, what happens with this next week is something we don't have much of a clue about at this point. The moisture is going to come north, but does it go this way or does it come up this way? We don't know those things just yet. In all honesty, it'd be nice if it came this way, because we wouldn't be dealing with any sort of wind problem here. It would just be a nice soaking rain, perhaps, for the middle of next week. But again, model differences there, so that remains to be seen. One thing we're a little more confident about is the temperature regime over the next 10 days. Looking above average through probably the first couple of days of next week, and then the second half of next week does turn cooler, it looks like. We're talking probably back to average, or maybe a little below average, as we go into late next week. But until then, boy, I'll tell you, it's a warm pattern. And when we look beyond late next week, here's that cool shot coming across. There it is right there in the kind of the 8 to 14 or 10 to 15 day outlook. After that, the climate modeling here is showing warm weather returning for the second half of October. So, if I were a betting man at this point, I would say October is very likely to go into the record books as a warmer than average month once again. We haven't had many cooler than average months over the last year and a half, really, since a much warmer pattern locked in. I could almost even say 2 years. Kind of late 2015 through now has been a very warm pattern in our part of the country. Thanks for checking out tonight's weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you tonight on 21 News at 11 and a fresh edition of this video Wednesday evening, same time, same place.